Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha, Srimad Varavara Munaye Namaha, Srimad Lokarya Mahagurave Namaha. Today we will start with the last Ithihyam of Pasuram 9, Tumani Madathu. When waking up the Gopika in this Pasuram, Andal calls out to her mother and says, Mami Ravalai Eluppiro. She uses the term Mami, which means Mama's wife, uncle's wife, aunt, and asks her to wake her daughter up. In this context, the commentator says that the mother did not consider herself as a biological mother, or rather she did not pay much weight to that, but rather as a servant of the Gopika, as a servant of another Srivaishnava. Rather than biological relationships, our Acharyas and ancestors considered the relationships that happen due to Srivaishnava association as superior. The biological relationships are more temporal in nature, and they will cease to exist when the bodily connections cease. However, the real state of the being is the Atma, which can never cease to exist. Being a Sri Vaishnava is an attribute of that Atma, of the Jivatma, rather than the material body in which the Atma is imprisoned. So, relationships that come into being due to a Jivatma being a Sri Vaishnava are considered better. To explain this, an Ithihyam involving a Pasuram of Thirumangai Alvar and Andal and Swami Ramanuja's relationship is mentioned. In a previous episode, we talked about the state of the Alvars going back and forth between the male self and the female trance. You may recall, Jnanathil tan pechu, Premathil pen pechu. When Thirumangai Alvar goes into the trance of being a female, he is called Parakala Nayagi. In one such instance, there is a beautiful decade in Periya Tirumozhi where Parakala Nayagi goes away with Emperuman to this place called Tiruvali, which is the birthplace of Thirumangai Alvar. This is the Kalvan Kol Padigam, the 7th decade in the 3rd centum of Periya Tirumozhi. This decade is through the lens of Parakala Nayaki's mother. Here, the mother laments that Parakala Nayaki leaves her and the dad and goes away with Emperuman. She says, Annayum Attanum enne Adiyomuk Kirangittilal. She considered, that is Parakala Nayaki's mother says, this Parakala Nayaki, she considered us as mere mother and father and not as adiyars, not as those who are engaged in the service of the Sri Vaishnava. Parakala Nayaki's mother considers herself as the servant of the Parakala Nayaki though, rather than as a parent. So she laments that Parakala Nayaki did not see the nature of the servitude, but only the biological relationship, and just because of that biological relationship, she left them and went with Emperuman. Let's remember this on one side. Now consider what happened with Andal and Ramanuja. In the Nachiyar Tirumozhi, Andal pledges to offer 100 cans of butter and akara adisal to the Lord Sundara Toludayan of Tirumaliranjolai. But before she could fulfill that pledge, she united with Ranganatha. So Ramanuja thought about this and he wondered, that pledge has not been fulfilled yet. So he fulfills that wish of Andal's. Andal, very pleased with this, called Ramanuja her brother. So Ramanuja got the name Koil annan. Kurattalvan's wife is also called Andal. Reflecting on these two stories, one of Parakala Nayaki leaving her parents considering only their biological relationship and not their servitude, and the other where Andal calls Ramanuja as her brother, Kurattu Andal would call Thirumangai Alvar as Vettimayar, the one with harsh words or harsh attitude, and would call Ramanuja lovingly as Koil annar. Hearing this, Swami Ramanuja said, would it be appropriate for Andal to call me as brother? Would it be apt for her to ignore that I am a servant? Ramanuja now thinks just like Parakala Nayaki's mother. Parakala Nayaki's mother thought, she just considered me as a mother and she did not think of me as a servant. That's why she left me. Now Ramanuja is also worried. He's like, oh my God, now if Andal calls me as brother, then that means Andal is going to forget that I'm a servant. So he was afraid that having a relationship such as mother, father, brother would make them forget the servitude and become the reason for separation, just like Parakala Nayaki separated from her parents, and he always wished to be a servant and not be separated. Similarly, the mother of Gopika in Pasuram 9, who Andal is referring as Maman Magale, Manikkadavam Tal Thiravai, Mami Ravale Eluppiro. She calls his Mami, right? So this Mami, she does not want to be called through a biological relationship like that, whereas she wants to remain as a servant. Let's ask ourselves, do we want to be kith and kin to our family and friends, or adiyars, or servants? Now on to today's Pasuram, Pasuram 10. Notru chuvarkam pugugindra ammanai. In this Pasuram, Andal wakes up a Gopika who's sleeping well because she understands that Emperuman takes the effort to attain his Jivatmas and hence sleeps peacefully because she knows Krishna will come for her. In this Pasuram, Andal refers to this Gopika as Arungalame. There is one who has impeccable and very high values, such that she is considered the crown jewel. In our Gurum paramparā, Emperumanar is considered the crown jewel and is impeccable with a special place in the Acharya Guru Parampara Ratnaharam. So this Gopika is like Emperumanar. Let's meditate upon the glories of our Acharyas and spend the rest of our day. Arvar Emperumanar Jiyar Thiruvadigalē Sharanam.